once I started to use the Google Notebook, I was reading my newspaper for Finland, and I'm an ice hockey fan. And then reading the story of my local team, and I started to, this is written by AI.
Right?
Because, there's I read every week a blog, I write a blog. And I don't use AI for that one. And people read it because it's also my broken English, what you write there. So
they can hear your voice,
yes,
right?
And I think that's what is still missing from the AI in that sense. So when you hear these podcasts, it's different.
It's
right?
different. It's different. And with AI now, everything and Gitix, and we'll talk about all of this in a moment. But I feel like there's a lot of performative element to it. There's a lot of marketing and PR, and it's not really substantive and meaningful. I mean, is this something you feel as well?
Yes and no. I mean, we had a meeting with NVIDIA a couple of weeks ago in the US, and when you look at what it will do for our networks, people easily you start to think about first just it helped me on the network and planning and operations, but I think it should bring a lot of new services as well. So that's maybe the automation part of it. But when you think about this, I don't know, what's the service that you can create the songs? Have you used that one?
The songs, no. Soro, I don't know.
Yes, something like that. So I'm using it quite a lot now. When everybody has a birthday, I'm sending a birthday song. And
a very customized one.
Yeah,
right?
You can do it. So those are kind of fun things, and it's still new.
That's what I mean. Like the show element of it is nice, right? And it's captivating, and it makes people think, wow.
Yeah.
But then go into the real meaning behind whatever you want to do. For example, if it's research, right? I mean, I just recently, a few months back, finished my doctoral degree from the University of Manchester. And before that, everybody was like, oh, you're unlucky because now you can do a PhD through it. And I look at them and smile. I look at them and smile because even if I see, like you said, if you read a paper that's written by an AI, whatever it is, you can see.
You will see it,
You will see. And it takes caveat that, it takes an expert eye, right? You have to have that element of, like maybe to the average person, it will pass as something of substance. But similar to music, for example, I'm sure musicians, when they see a piece,
of course you will see. I'm in that with you there. I tried a couple of times to use AI for my blog, and once I used it because the competition had achieved to get the copy of that and sold to the customer, and then I thought about that. First I was angry, and then I made my next with ChatGPT, and of course you have nothing then there.
You have not. It's just
and then I decided actually I should be proud that if my blog is something that the competition thinks is so valuable that they want to show it to the customer. And I said, like, that's the open world.
That's validation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people. I mean, and the more AI is used by people, I feel like there are two camps. People that are like you and I, who are creators, who are able to use ChatGPT maybe or AI, but in the most kind of supportive way. So AI is not driving, it's not creating, it's just supporting, right? And then there's the other camp who lets AI drive, and that will create a gap and divide between both camps. And then there's a point in time where there's no turning back. It's just they don't know any better. And the moment you switch off ChatGPT, they're gone. They can't do anything about it, right?
But I feel a little bit similar when I moved to US back in 99. Google was new, so we used to. I don't know. I'm a little bit older than you are, so we used to use Alta Vista before that. And my friends tell me that I was one of the first ones who came and talked about Google. And in the Finnish community there,
but I think there's a difference, right? I mean, Google did not create things. It was a tool. Like it's like anything AI and robotics. It's like it's a replacement. It's like automation in manufacturing, right? In the industrial age, you had those people that are standing on the conveyor belt that do things. Now there's a machine that does that. AI is that. Google and others they were tools that you still have to
kind of like. But I started to use internet 1986 or 7. At the time it was Unix, and you had to
yes.
You had news groups, and you would have to go there to.
Oh wow, you did that?
Yeah. So you would need to find the data from elsewhere. Suddenly, when you have a tool that looks for you for that, it felt like AI.
And that's okay. Okay.
You know, think about all what you were able to suddenly, like with one simple question, find from the internet, and not to try, you know, browse through which news group and which part of it that I'll find what I'm looking at. So anyways.
So in 5 years, what do you think AI will be and it will do to us, in your opinion? I mean, because it looks like you're having this parallels between Google and internet and others.
We were last week in India there's something what we do with London Business School.
Yes.
And it's called the Global Business Consortium. So it's a training where you have senior people from 5 companies. I guess we are not recording yet. So we have Emirates, DB World, Oracle, Save the Children, and Nokia. So very kind of a different things. And we were talking about 2 things. AI, of course, was in everybody. So everybody's using AI in different ways.
Yeah.
And then we had the 2 days of the 6 days was focused on a professor of future, right?
Okay.
So looking exactly like how can you predict things, or can you predict things? And you know, we were, if you think about, give you an example what it might be. So we spoke about the car industry.
Yeah.
And we looked at 2040.
Okay. Interesting.
And the thinking was that that time driving is banned.
Oh, wow. That's a prophecy.
Yeah. And you know, then you look like kind of a backwards what we were looking at. I can talk a little bit what Steve Jobs had seen in 1983. But so we were playing with the idea that, okay, now driving is banned. So what does AI mean in that situation? And we were having a group of people talking, and quite fast you come into the kind of ideas that, okay, nobody owns cars, right? It doesn't make sense to own a car.
Yeah.
And then the car is not anymore basically a car, but I call it wearable. So it's basically something that you go in to entertain yourself or to work, depending on what's your purpose of the travel. So the you know, convenience of driving doesn't mean anything, but you more look at, okay, it needs to be like an office, so I can, while I'm being driven, I can have a meeting. Or if I'm going to party, you most likely want to have you know, something more fun in there, or you know, what have you there. So sports you most likely have. So kind of a thinking that the AI becomes to be also part of the, like you see, I mean, some of the cars are today already like Android phones, right? Or Huawei is building their own cars. And
you've seen the Tesla RoboCab, I think, was it?
I have not looked at that, but I mean, we were discussing.
This is similar, because it doesn't have a steering wheel, doesn't have pedals, doesn't have anything.
Yeah, because nobody's driving it anymore.
Yeah.
And I had a Mercedes here. I just moved to Riyadh, by the way. So, but
you just moved to Riyadh.
Yeah, I moved to Riyadh, but I had a friend of mine. His husband was driving with me, and then he was saying that stop touching the wheel. I said, why? He said, my software drives better than you. So he had worked in Germany for Daimler, and he's been the AMG team leader to build that self-driving feature there. So it's already there, right?
Right.
But now you have to, every 1 minute you have to touch it. So what is AI in 5 years from here? Maybe 10 years, what we were discussing. So obviously a lot of things will be different. So we went to see 3 startup companies in Bangalore last week who are all working on self-help medicine.
Okay.
So basically looking at for poor people, right, and how to get. So I went to see a company called For Us Health or something like that. So they have kind of a equipment for eye diseases, and how you can do self-help and you know, compare it with the data that you have there and basically do a self-diagnosis.
So do you think that AI will replace doctors for good?
But we actually spoke about it, and the message was that no, but doctors who use AI will replace doctors who don't.
Okay, so even in 10, 15, 20 years, still no one thinks that AI will replace doctors.
That was, you know, what we were
part
thinking.
of discussions.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to the like pilots today. So you don't need really pilots,
right? But you still have someone.
You have them there because of, you know, that, okay, now you know the sad story from the German wings where the pilot decided to make a suicide with everybody with him. So I think they've taken that scenario out now. But you still have a human brain there to think about somehow over the computer. So that was our feeling, that doctors will be there, but obviously they use much more, you can be doing remotely things, so you can do many things in a different way when basically the 5G, 6G world meets the AI. And
we'll talk about that, but that's what I mean. I mean, is there a world where AI will actually replace the human brain? I mean, you mentioned how let's say in medicine, in airplanes, pilots and others, even though the machine can do everything, maybe at 1,000-fold more accurate and more sort of, at a higher quality than human, still there's this X factor, right? There's this something that maybe no one can define that humans have. Do you think that AI will have it?
Well, we will study now as our group work. We'll study the quantum computing because that together then of course could bring even much more, faster decision. But isn't the humanity, that's the maybe the X factor that you talk about, whether you call it the religion or whatever you call, but there
Spirit,
is that
mind,
there's that part that I think it's because it's intangible anyway, so how do you basically build that with AI? I don't know. And I think at least personally what I see there, so we were watching the videos of the virtual girlfriends and boyfriends in Japan, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to think about it's quite sad story if that's your interaction, right?
Yes.
And I think
does it have a fulfillment at the same time?
And I think that's the issue maybe more than anything else. But
it's more philosophical.
What do you think?
Well, to me, I think that this element of human agency, humans don't need a data set to create, right? Humans don't need a seed, in let's say you and I, if I ask you to think of a random number, you'll be able to think of a random number. I'll be able to think of a random number. We don't need a seed. An AI or a machine will always need a seed of some sort, when it comes to development. And similarly, when it comes to AI, no matter how much the large language model is perfect, you still have to feed it with data and data set. And the more that you feed it, the more it'll be able to create, but it has to have so it doesn't have true agency. And this, as long as we're not able to understand the human mind and the spirit, what makes us alive, and everything around that. So why do we love? How come we hate? For example, and all of those.
The biologist would tell you it's chemistry, right? But
it explains it. That's what I'm trying to say. It sort of explains it, but it doesn't explain the rationale behind it. Like, for example, why would I get angry if someone crossed? It's because maybe ego, maybe some. But then why don't someone else?
So my late father was studying theology in his late life, and my brother is a priest also. And my father said it like, that theology is a science that is looking for the question why. And he said that each religion is like a door and with a different keyhole, right? So you look at it bit differently, but the human is still looking the answer for why.
Yes.
And I think we will never find out why, because at least I don't know which AI could tell you that okay, it's like the question, what is the meaning of life? And you know the answer? 42. You know this book, right? So it's like the computer, it's this, I'll tell you in the end, I forgot the name, but it's like they're asking the computer, what's the meaning of life? And the answer is 42. So don't ask me why.
Don't ask me why. So that's the thing. I mean, people, like science and astrology and biology, they can explain, but they cannot explain the why, right? Or where is it going? Why are we here? Similarly, with AI, there's an element of human emotions, empathy, understanding, that context. That if you don't feed it, and that's what I mean by creative agency. Humans have this creative agency. You'll be having a shower, and then all of a sudden this idea pops up, and you'll be like, where did this come from?
By the way, it's not only humans. My wife is now living with 5 dogs. And the dogs have similar things. Of course, it's much more simple.
Yeah, it's primitive, but still, yes.
But still, it's there. So you know what
100%.
How they feel, how they sometimes exactly what you were saying. I can think about her dog. So when he makes something stupid, like steals our steak on the table. So you can see that something went into his head and he felt that now I can steal the human food and it's going to be a good idea. It's not, but...
But I mean, would we be able to create an AI that reaches that level? I don't know.
I hope not.
I really hope not, because otherwise, then all of those pessimists and people who ring the scary sort of thoughts about the Armageddon and end of time, it'll happen, because then those super machines that are able to make decisions in a fraction of a second, that will have moral compasses that are absolute, will maybe have judgments, and then they'll have to
because the judgment, I think that's the point, that the moral is also like it's a bit different in Arabic culture or Nordic cultures. I sometimes talk with my Saudi friends about it. You know, when you come in there, so kind of like they, we spoke once with one good customer about religion and politics and everything that you should not talk, right? But it was a very nice discussion, and he was giving his view on Finns.
Okay.
Saying that you guys are in the middle of the summer naked in your sauna, making love to each other, being drunk, right? So like, yeah, it could look like that.
It could look like that, but then it's different cultures. And I agree with you. I mean, this and the thing is, humans understand those differences, right? And most people, especially rational ones, will be able to appreciate the colorfulness of humans, right? I mean, which is something that still machines can do. I don't know if they'll be able to do it, but it's that element of interest and intrigue. Of course, I'm talking about the rational, mind who is open-minded, who's able to see things that are different than him or her, but then still get interested in that difference, right? Machines don't do that.
And I think that's the good thing. Should we start? I don't know how you want to do
this. We started. All right.
I'll good.
This is to me, the podcast is more of a exploring of the mind and have connection, at a human level. And everything we mentioned so far is so intriguing, especially because it's AI, right? And everything is recorded. So
I'm not a human person, by the way. So I'm just like a robot sent from Finland. You know the stereotype of Finns, we don't talk, right? We are shy. And I think people usually say that you are not coming from Finland, but I am.
I'll tell you what, my Finnish friends are very friendly, but they've been living here for some time. So I haven't been to Finland yet. I haven't been to that part of the world yet, but it's on my bucket list. I will go there. But tell me first, how's your experience in Saudi? How long have you been in Saudi for so far?
I moved to Saudi at the beginning of this year, so it's very fresh. I was before that 3 years here in Dubai, and I was living in Burj Khalifa. And I moved from Burj Khalifa to Saudi. So there's a huge difference, right?
Okay.
For me, Saudi it reminds me of my time in China. So I lived in Shanghai, and we lived there just before the World Expo 2008, 2011. I started traveling in China already in the 90s, but we lived there for 3 years. And now Saudi, first my friends took me to my home, and they were looking at that. Are you really living north side of the King Abdullah Road? Nobody lives here.
Why is that?
Because it's desert. There's nothing.
Oh.
But my compound is new. They are building it there,
right.
And you can see that the city is expanding to north.
Good. Okay.
So for me, why I said it reminds me of times in China is that Shanghai was being, of course, it was built in the 90s, but before the expo, just exploding with all the new buildings, and now the same. So I just learned recently that 7 minutes from my home, which is in the middle of nowhere right now, will be the world's largest shopping mall somewhere into the 3 years time. So it's maybe not say the name, but it's been built there, so it's not the plan. So I see it. There will be 8 hotels. They say it's going to be bigger than Dubai Mall. So I think Dubai Mall is today the largest mall. So that's why I said it's the largest mall in the world. So and so you see all that. So that's, I think, one thing. What I also see, I started to travel to Saudi in 2008, and I made a posting in LinkedIn as well. We had this year our summer internship, and we had 22 females, not a single male.
Where? When? In 2008?
No, this year.
Oh, this
2008.
Year.
2008. No way.
Different time. Yeah.
And I brought one Finnish student lady as well in there, and I think next year I'd like to bring a little bit more to mix. Also the foreigners cultures, in there. And when you talk with these young, fine women in the early part of their career, so we usually hire like 3-4 of them, the training is for 8 weeks. We get them to know our portfolio.
Nokia,
yeah. And they get the project they need to do. And it's just the amazing amount of energy, innovation. There's the will to show, because maybe the sisters and mothers and grandmothers didn't have an opportunity that these ladies have right now. And actually, I was just yesterday talking with somebody about the differences, and I think what the Saudis are doing very well is that they have invested into the universities. So rather than, I think they also used to send people for foreign universities. Now you have the local universities. They are bringing teachers there who are maybe helping on that side, but I think that's a fundamental difference that will help you to create the local workforce and also kind of a more local innovation. So I think it's a great.
And you can see the output of that now through these.
For these programs, of course, you see when you have you been to
Are these
Riyadh?
interns coming from university? Or?
Yeah. So we had for this one, actually, by the way, I created a podcast with the Google notebook.
Yes.
One. I can play it to you later on, but basically, I think this year we had 3 universities that we selected the women from.
What disciplines?
Engineering. So they are software engineering, electrical engineering, and they go through an 8-week program. I think we did something like, well, I will not repeat the numbers right now, but it was significant amount of hours. I think 19 different courses, covering the entire portfolio and technology.
So it's not sales and commercial.
No.
It's actually engineering.
Engineering, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and then we take them at the end. We also give them presentation skills, English, because that has been. I saw a difference between the 2 years ago and this year. So I think that they have started in the university also to give you more because of course engineers cannot be only silent, right?
True.
So they give them presentation skills in English, and they did some. One of the teams they used AI for their presentation, so they had an interactive presentation with whatever they call the AI guy. So it was really, it was amazing, and we usually hire something like 3-4 of those young women.
You hired them?
Yeah, of course. There's a great hiring, because you see them 8 weeks, you see their interest. So and I think that's also part of our certification in that sense, right? So it's difficult to find maybe some more senior people
who are.
But here you have, and I've said it to my team. I used to live in Turkey as well, and in Turkey, Nokia has something what's called the Alcatel Teletaş. So it's an old company, and the current senior leaders of our customer base, I would say maybe 50%. That's my just a figure, but. Started their career with Teletaş. And so, when you start something in young, you will remember. I remember my first real job, and I'm loyal for that company right in a way. So when I go to Finland, I prefer to use their services because they gave me an opportunity to learn, right?
True.
And I think that's going to be also happening on the long term in Saudi now, when you take these young people who are full of passion, and who knows where they end up in their career. But I think they will remember where they started the learning besides university.
Do you know if this is common across other companies as well? Or other than
I was
Nokia?
talking with some of the other companies, and they were not doing it today. Actually, I was in this training last week, and was talking with a couple of the companies that perhaps we could do something together as well to create it to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Some of them, like we spoke with Oracle, they compete with us, but on the other side, the more you can do together, so you actually. I think it's not about competing there. It's more giving the opportunities.
Collaboration, yes.
And I think they will more select different type of people than what we need for the networking. So I think there's endless opportunities. I was a couple of weeks ago in New Jersey visiting Bell Labs. I think you know that Bell Labs is part of us. And
yes. You purchased it.
And basically, when you look at it, I was talking with them that what type of cooperation they do with the U.S. universities. Again, with the same idea that maybe we can bring some more cooperation in Saudi on that one. So but you were asking how is living in Saudi, so it's exciting. I think
this is amazing, because I will tell you what. One of my questions that I wanted to check with you is about this region. Obviously, I mean, this podcast is about this region. It's about innovation in this region. It's about education in this region. It's about the market when it comes to corporate, when it comes to the economic growth potential, right? And one thing that it always comes to my mind is, are we investing in innovation or are we buying innovation?
Yeah. I was thinking about it when I was kind of a little bit preparing. I was asking from Linda that, okay, what do you want to know? And I personally, I mean, what's innovation? Innovation is to kind of execute new ideas on how you do things. So it's not necessarily that you are creating a lot of IPR, but I think what I see both here in UAE a bit more mature than Saudi, because of course the UAE has been more
started earlier. Yeah,
started earlier. So we work here with different universities, also with Nokia, with the idea of how you create the kind of from the student base.
Yes.
To have some local
innovations
kind of innovation.
and inventions.
I think the difference seems to be that, of course, there are more Saudis than there are Emiratis. So that's the scale that I see, that Saudis maybe on the long term going to have more innovation capability because of just the number here. It needs to be together with the expat community and things like that. But so I personally, the way I see it is that, of course, today it's very easy to see that we are just importing products here. But one of the reasons I moved to Saudi is that I actually want to create new products.
Really? R&D?
Kind of like, it depends how you define R&D, but yes, so there is big interest in Africa for me.
Okay.
And I think that we can create business models, so innovate business models. I think we can innovate. I'm thinking about in the energy, for example, that it's a huge problem in African operators. So how can we do things on that side?
With the towers and
it's not only the towers. So you have today in Africa, a lot of the base stations are running with diesel.
True. Yeah.
So we've been studying here, for example, what about using wind power on a site? And we had some young students joining us here in Dubai, and the end result was still that the wind power is not suitable.
It's
so
not sufficient.
It's
really?
The OPEX of that is still
it's very expensive.
Because you have good network, you have tens of thousands of kind of sites, and the like there's of course a lot of OPEX also involved in filling the diesel in generators plus all the environmental impact. But I think still today the wind power is too little. But I think we have to over the time, and I think that's what the countries are good in. So you have the oil will not be forever.
True.
So if you think about the Vision 2030 or the Dubai plan, so I think both countries understand that you have to use what you have today in order to innovate something that will be for future. So I'm excited about that. So
there's the top three. I mean, the similarities between most of the GCC's national agendas is the top three, right? Diversification, education, and innovation, right? Those are the top three priorities. And that's why I keep on asking, are we actually innovating, or do we like the sound of innovation as a PR stunt, as a performative act, but actually we're buying innovation, we're not innovating. You know what I mean? Like there's a...
Look, okay, you have your history in Chitex, we discussed about it, and how many startups are there? Sorry I talked too much about Saudi maybe, but I brought one of my friends who is looking at the innovation funds of Nokia, so he came to Leap.
Okay.
And he was comparing that. Have you heard about Slush?
Yes, of course.
In Helsinki, right?
Yes.
And I think he said that it was just like totally different amount of innovation and startups in Leap, even compared to Finland.
Really?
Yeah. And the amount of deals that we made in there. So I think that there is the big...
That's what I'm trying to say. Is it like, I mean, from your perspective as like someone who's coming from outside, and I'm not questioning, I'm really asking to understand, right? Is it meaningful innovations that you see in 3-4 years will at least reap some results that will change paradigms here? Or is it just, lifestyle, performative, trying to bring and stitch things together?
I think it's more than the lifestyle. I think I'm trying to think about examples of innovations right now, what we would be seeing there. But if you think about okay, it's just the business modeling. I think it's also innovation on how you will bring digital plans into other countries. So look at the digital level of Dubai.
Yeah.
Like I haven't seen, like when I move in here, how I buy my car, how I get my driver's license,
insurance,
everything is digitalized to a totally different level that I see elsewhere.
Yes.
So it's not lifestyle. I think that's an innovation that will help you to basically first make the society more efficient.
Yes.
And I think
that's the foundation, like the infrastructure.
And I think then also if you look at the security, safety here. So this is something when my friends come over here to Dubai and they are totally shocked that, are you leaving your phone your table when you go to the bathroom, or can you leave your drink, that nobody's going to put anything into your drink, right? So I think those are, I don't know if you see them as innovation, but I think that all of these come together.
Of course. I mean, the one thing that I always try to separate, right? I mean, there's the innovation at the government level. So when it comes to the infrastructure, when it comes to the facilitation of business, when it comes to safety and security, healthcare, education, all of those elements that are facilitating a quality of life for the residents and citizens of the countries here in the GCC, that is hands down one of the best in the world. And obviously, it's not something that we need to prove. People come here and see it all the time, right? I opened my business. Literally, I didn't go anywhere. It's all online, including the bank account. So I'm using a neo-banking sort of service, so it doesn't have any branches. I just downloaded an app and boom, everything is there. And when I entered my business license, it already had connections in the back end with all of those licensees, and everything is done. So that's good. And this is absolutely amazing. And there's no buts and ifs behind that, right? I think my focus and the spotlight is on the private sector. You don't expect government to create, I don't know, a WhatsApp, for example, or to create a fintech that sort of changes paradigms and sort of. I think the question that I want to say is, are we independent? And I think that's the question. Are we independent from the world? And so that's question one. Now, question number two: are we contributing to the world as much as we should in a reciprocal way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about going back to Chitex today, and we've had the Do booth with the CEO and CTO and CPO, everybody, and we have there one example of innovation that happens locally together with the Nokia technology and Do.
Yeah.
So the world is suffering more and more about floods.
Yes.
Also here in Dubai.
Yes.
So we have built together them based on their 5G advanced, basically a system that they can sell from the private sector to the municipalities and cities, where you can make early alarms of the floods and hopefully, to react or be proactive on that side. I don't know if you consider that to be private, but for me, Do is, it's a good
That's
example.
That's an innovation, 100%. Yes,
and if you look at what happened now in Florida or wherever in the world, these floods will be more and more there. So looking at that, so we also demonstrating a couple of others like crowd control in that sense. So that with the 5G and of course 6G even more, you can see that, okay, there's something happening. And you can, of course, based on that one, you can send a drone, what we also do together, so you can go there to see what's happening. And then we have a smoke, one more application we are showing in the booth is basically based on 5G in a factory environment, fire control or smoke alarms, so that you can do many things that you were not doing based on 4G network. In that sense. So I think those are good examples. And I'm trying to think about also, earlier today I met with Ian and we're talking about their investment in Karim, for example.
Absolutely, yes.
Which is, again, of course, you have, my daughter works for a Finnish, it's called Volt.
Volt,
yes. So Volt was bought by DoorDash, but she was there from the beginning. and so you have of course many parts, but I think that what they have done with Karim is another good example of people were thinking that's just a food delivery. Now I think in Karim
it's a platform.
You can have so many different services. So I think that these are some of the things where you are maybe in the global forefront, and you can bring, of course, then the question is, and you can see, of course, like Etisalat is, or Ian is expanding to Europe, to already, of course, in Pakistan, now acquisition more in Pakistan of Telenor. So they are trying to bring these services for people, right?
Yeah.
So that you could think about. I didn't get when Etisalat changed the name, I was really like, what is this? It's like, the artist formerly known as Prince, this sign that nobody understands. But you know the story of this Ian.
No.
So it's basically they like it's Ian Money, Ian Home, Ian Business.
Oh yes, of course. The rebranding, so it's not just telecommunication. It's much more. It's much more than that. Yes.
And I think those are all innovation that happens here. And with the Etisalat frame, they own what 20% of Vodafone.
Yes.
So that it all brings new horizons.
It makes sense. So here's a question to you: why is Europe really behind when it comes to 5G? I mean, every time I go to Europe, whether it's the UK, whether it's mainland Europe, I look at my phone and it's 3G, and I'm like, come on. It's like,
are you sure that you have the 5G switched on? Because some people switch it off because of power.
Sometimes no. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I have better. I mean, to me, I'm performance and speed for everything. But it's very rare that you find 5G, even 4G. No. It's not as common. And you're talking about a 15 years old technology.
So if you see it globally, people don't often see it, but. I think now Du has been said to be the best network in the world, right? So I think there was an announcement. You can look at the fact there on that side. And since I've been in the region, I've been trying to say for people that, hey, look, they always talk about what happens in Japan and Korea.
Yes.
But actually what happens in 5G, it happens here in the Gulf, in UAE, in Saudi. The amount of kind of investment, the amount of the government will to push for that one.
Yes.
I think that's the key in this region. Why we have had, of course, Korea continues to be doing, and Japan a lot on that side. But I think here the government has also made it to be that way, that the digital society, the digital plan has been there for quite some long time. If you look at the European countries, I think the competition between the operators have been fierce.
Yeah.
They have not been able to innovate new services, and under the heavy regulation, they've underinvested into the 5G. And of course, the competitive landscape has changed also in that sense. So there was a big market share of the Chinese. And now with the kind of a current geopolitical situation, many of the European countries have said that they cannot have the Chinese Huawei in the network. So I think that's another investment that goes in a way to rebuild what they already did once on that side. But I think it's also, I feel sad about it, because when I started my career 30 years ago in Finland, on the operator side, we were definitely on the forefront. Yeah. If you think about the 2G, both Ericsson and Nokia, we were the ones who were leading the innovation and building. Then, 3G was a bit more, but LTE similar. But I think the world has changed also in that sense, that the battlefield of the operators has changed. So the over-the-top, if you look at Google profits, so they kind of are not regulated. So they are innovating a lot of services using the networks.
Yes.
And then the operators are being squeezed, with lesser of the future profit in that sense. And
they're becoming, I've heard this term, they're becoming dumb pipes.
That's what the worry might be. And for us, of course, on the other side, we have been squeezed by, I will not make publicly too much of comments, but let me put it that way, that when I talk with my friends in the elevator industry, I'm asking, do you have global players from China? And you don't, right? So you have, I think, three main players is from US, Germany, and Finland. And the Chinese players have not come there. And
not yet.
And then you think about why.
Yeah, why?
Well, I was living in Burj Khalifa, like I said, and in Burj Khalifa you have 57 elevators.
Yeah.
And if you think about the people flow, you control maybe 30,000, 40,000 people at a time. Now think about the nationwide 5G network. Think about what you can do in terms of control on that one. So I sometimes, I don't want to get too political here, so later I can talk about, but think about the amount of, I mean, look what happened on 19th of July when there was the problem with the one security company. I was in Istanbul flying from Johannesburg to via Istanbul to Helsinki, and my plane was 2 hours late.
Microsoft issue. Yeah.
So it could not leave. So now think about the impact on this. So in my opinion, it becomes to be like
it's much more than technology and innovation.
So it doesn't help you to be creating an elevator company because you can control the 20,000 people in one building, but with the network, you of course with the digital world. So and I don't want to say, if I look at positive side, it's you can create business, right?
Yeah.
So you work with banking sector, transport, everything works on digital world with 5G, and that's why I think became to be so political also when you look at it in that sense. So
and that's why the during the Trump time in the U.S. and the fight with China, it was practically. I mean, this is what I heard. Obviously, I'm not an expert on that domain by any stretch of the imagination, but what I heard is all of the issues because of 5G and because of the control over the infrastructure. Exactly what you said. And if you don't know, and if you don't, obviously technology is extremely complicated now. And it's very, very, very difficult to see if you have something that is tapping onto the infrastructure. And if you have it's like a national security thing, right?
Well, okay, think about what happened, unfortunately, in Lebanon.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that type of terrorist attack, I mean, I think it was, I will not have any words for that one, so how can you operate and do things like that? But look, I mean, I always think about it in that way that you know, the cold winters that Germany had with the gas, now think about that. What you control with the 5G network is everything. Everything,
yes.
So can you imagine that you are 2 days without your bank?
Yes.
You cannot buy anything. Can you imagine you have no electricity left? So I think that's why it became to be so political. So I don't, you know, of course I'm from Europe, but I don't want to take any sides in that sense. My message always is that if I would be an operator, I would try to find the balance.
What's the solution to that? I mean, how can I mean, coming from obviously the innovator, Nokia, right? They are the ones who actually, I mean, I remember back in the days when, you know, most of my phones were Nokia. I had the Nokia, the
3110 or what?
No. I had the 811, the titanium one. You know, like I always had those small ones, and it was all chic and and I remember every time I went to go to the Nokia website, they said they're known not for their headsets but for their technology and innovation at the, you know, the base stations and the. How can someone know? I mean, because it's very delicate, right? I mean, it's if you have a phone, if you have a network and infrastructure, what is it that you? I mean, it's a massive trust issue, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I start from the Nokia purpose today.
Yeah.
Because many people remember the old slogan that, you know, connecting people. You know, we were actually saying internally it was disconnecting families, but that was an internal joke. But now today we say that at Nokia we create the technology that helps the world to act together.
Yeah, that's a nice slogan.
And I think it is around for this region specifically as well. But I'll start first, kind of course, that you have to have that technology that is thinking about the environment. So ESG is extremely important element.
Yeah.
We don't look at only the kind of a footprint. We also look at handprint.
What's that?
So basically, the impact of digitalization.
The impact
of digitalization.
Oh, digitalization.
So
yes,
basically,
yes.
that you are not only looking at that what's the emissions of a base station, but you look at what's the impact that the digital world will have on less transport, all that stuff.
True.
So I think the ESG is very important element
The
there.
United Nations
But
ones,
Nokia, I don't know if you knew that we are, I think now 8 years, the most ethical company in the world.
How is that calculated?
There's basically, it's called Ethisphere. So they are kind of making you to report on what type of incidents you have. So we have very stringent rules inside Nokia, making sure that whatever business we do, it's clean. We don't kind of go into any funny business on that side. So, I mean, those are the type of things they look at. Looking at that, we don't, increase any war activity, anything like that. So we are very prudent in that sense. So we take big pride of that one, and I think that helps that we operate in China as well as we operate in the US. Of course, China is very little nowadays, the market share there, because of what has happened. We work a lot on the things like UN Women.
Okay.
So what I spoke earlier about the Saudi female program is also part of the UN Women, just to look at on how you bring this type of, let's say, better things for the society. Last week I was in India. I visited something which is called the Crystal House, which is basically a schooling system for the people on the poverty, right? So we are bringing kids to go through the school. And actually what I found out, we are so hiring after they go to college.
Oh,
so
wow.
we've hired people, so they start from the
really
whatever
nice.
you call. So I think when you go in that sense, so you have to, my message for our customer base is that I don't care about the competition, but with Nokia, you get the technology, but you also get the ethical. I forgot to mention health and safety, which is important, right? So we climb in the towers, we drive test around it. So we also put a lot of requirements on the health and safety. So with us, we try to bring more the entire kind of good things that help the society.
Yeah.
So for me, that's part of my purpose of doing my role as well.
It makes sense. I mean, you don't. I mean, I don't think. I mean, every time you think of Nokia, obviously you think of legacy. Yeah. Right. It's one of those companies that are deeply connected to every human being on earth. Right. At some point in time, it was the number one. I think 80% market share, and then now at the telecom operators level. So yeah, I think it's just that there's this element of mistrust, like you mentioned, that was ignited, because of the incident that happened in Lebanon. And then it's just crazy how the world now works, because now you look at your phone and it's like, how do I know that there are things in there? How do I know that, my office here has all sorts of, the Ring and the cameras and all of those technology? How do you know that these chips do not have, things that...
I think about that. One thing is that you make sure that where you buy from, where you buy from, right?
Okay.
So
okay.
I don't want to talk too much about the Lebanon thing, but what happened there, I think it was not most likely fully controlled, the whole kind of delivery chain, supply chain, if you call it that way. So I think when you Ring is owned now by Amazon as well?
Yes.
And you know what you will get there, right? So they are quality company, and you have to, of course, trust and know that they will not store their products in a place where
someone can have access to. And
so I think the importance of that becomes to be much more in that sense. So I guess it's, what you have with the global brand. If you go to something else, who knows then, what's the story. But it's a very interesting. This kind of discussion.
I mean, we can go hours obviously talking about it, and there are people that it's not just the political element of it, but also the technology element of it, and that's where I come, and that's where my mind works. But if we come back to the innovation in the region here, and Nokia being at the forefront of innovation when it comes to enabling, obviously, you have the 4G, you have the 5G, now you have the 6G. What is, in your opinion, from your experience here in the past few years, what is the one thing that is slowing down innovation?
It's a good question in that sense. If you start from the teams and what have you there, so we kind of, I think we'll talk a little bit about entrepreneurship at some point. So for me, the Nokia essentials are like it's open, empowered, fearless.
Open, empowered, fearless.
And fearless.
Okay.
And I think what will slow down the innovation if people start to feel that they are not empowered, so they are afraid of making mistakes.
Interesting. Tell me more.
And I had a chance to talk with our chairwoman a couple of years ago. Every now and then we meet, and she was. It's a lady, Sari Baldauf, and
in Nokia. Oh, yeah.
She's actually, we can talk about hours of her. She's a very remarkable person in the industry, and she's a chairwoman right now. She said that we have to empower people, and I said, with all the respect, Mrs. Chairwoman, I disagree. And exactly like, we should empower. Just it is empowered. And
so you had the empowerment to say no.
No, and then she was asking, exactly. And then she was asking, what do you mean? I said that I think you have to create a culture where people know that they are empowered. So they don't need to wait, because if empowered means that I have to wait. So I want people to and I, by the way, have one slogan I use all the time: if you're on time, you're late.
I love that. Wait. Let me stop there. I love that. First, let me tell everyone that Mikko came here almost 40 minutes early, right? I wasn't even here. Yeah. He just ambushed me. I got all sorts of
sometimes it might be sorry. It's also a little bit maybe impolite. But why I talk about that is it goes. Beautiful. We start all of our meetings. My team learn it very fast. We start them at 58 minutes.
I love that.
So 2 minutes early. And why so? Because, of course, innovation is that you are trying to think in advance what would happen, right? And that links going back to this empowerment. So for me, it's the story that the people who are closest to the problem know best how to sort it out. If they need to ask, boss or anybody else, it means that you're going to be late. And I think that's why I think it's a lot about the culture and movement. And I think we have been quite nicely growing. We don't say, I think, the numbers publicly, and we are in the silent period right now, but Middle East Africa has been the part of the Nokia business has been growing, and we continue to grow. I saw today our competition numbers, and I'm smiling silently because it's never good if they are in trouble, but I know that we've done something right, and what we've been working on here is to get the people, like I call it C-1. So typically in a big organization, we calculate like N-1 or N-2, and N stands for the CEO. In my organization, we calculate C-1, and C stands for customer. So you want to make sure that the customer front, when we work on the markets, I'm not in R&D, so I'm in the markets. So I want to make sure that these teams basically have the knowledge that they can fail, they can make a mistake. And we used to say, and I still say, that it's okay, don't make twice the same mistake, so learn. And I think that's the innovation. When you're asking, I think what stops the innovation, that people feel that or they're maybe afraid of failing. And if you're afraid of failing, it means that you're never going to go to the area that you didn't know. So if you're not feeling a bit anxious or uncertain, I think it means that you're just doing the thing that you know, which means most likely no innovation, right?
A lot to unpack there, Mikko. I mean, you mentioned something that's exactly where almost everyone feels, but no one says. You mentioned your example with your chairwoman who you were able to say no or object, and you were comfortable saying it. That doesn't exist here?
I think it's most likely in many places of the world, it's people are somehow maybe afraid of the authority or something. And Nokia culture was always like that. And we don't always, by the way, appreciate. So last week we went to our Bangalore site with other companies who joined the same training I was in, and everybody who came out said that the Nokia culture looks really interesting. And we are like, okay, it's just the way who we are. And I think that's exactly like Sari herself is a great example. I think back in the 80s, I have not verified this story, but I think it's a great story. So the urban legend inside Nokia is that she went to the board. She was under 40 at that time, and she went to the board and said that can I spend something, let's agree it was like 150 million Finmarks, which is like whatever, 25 million euros, dollars, to develop a system.
Okay.
And the board had kind of said that we can always afford to lose that money, so let her try. You know what the system was?
What?
GSM.
Oh no!
That's why she's the chairwoman today.
Oh wow!
So that it was also like empowering that way. That and she's not an engineer, by the way. She's an economist by training, to my best understanding. But the board had the trust, which is important also for me. For me, trust is given, not earned. So they had a trust on her that they give you significant amount of money to develop something that nobody would know whether it will really work or not.
And that's the key. That's the point.
Yeah, that's the innovation, right? Yeah, and you have to, allow to think about these type of things, and I think that's the innovation. Of course, you have to have the vision. So last week I was seeing a video of Steve Jobs. I think it was 1983, where he's basically explaining iPad.
I think I've seen it. Yeah. It went viral.
So he's kind of explaining like you can read newspapers and it's like paper and all the things. And when did iPad come out? 2010.
2010.
Somewhere there. Yeah. I got my first one in 2011, so that's why I thought it was maybe. Yeah. So I think that you need to have the vision and then, but but I think exactly the empowerment needs to be that you create the culture of failing fast, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about the speed of change, I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older that you feel that change is more constant. Maybe it was less or more, I don't know. But I think you have to be kind of creating a culture where people try new things, and then if it doesn't work, then don't do it. And that's where if I go back to the region here and all that stuff, so most of my people are here locals. I'm coming from outside with the global experience, and it's the team who is working on this one. So I'm just trying to be staying out, and I said that I'm lazy, so keep doing more and let's try new things. Let's try the crazy ideas, and if it works, let's do more. If it doesn't work, do something else. And we have great examples of that one. So that's a public reference. So during the Hutch, we did with STC, we called the product Mantarei. But this year I think you had officially 2.7 million people during the 3 days of Hutch, and the STC network was the best performing network there. And this Mantarei touched the network 100,000 times over the three days. So it's AI based, where you're continuously adjusting how the crowds are moving, where you need, what do you need. And I think it's a great
resources,
example.
You mean?
No, it's resources in terms of network.
Yes,
so not people. So we
have
calculated you would have to have
that's
100,000 engineers would have been needed, and that innovation was done by our local engineers together with the customer. So they were still when Ramadan was starting, I was in a dinner where people were saying that it's a catastrophe. We don't get this software to do what we need. The team put then efforts over the next.
So just 2 months before Hajj.
Yeah, And the team in Saudi, together with the customer, they put this in place based on our products. But of course, you have to think about the scenarios, what you will have there. And if you think about it, that they were fearless, right? And they went against for something that I think nobody knows. But if you think about, you cannot fail in Hutch either, right? STC network needs to work. And the guys went fearlessly and had that system that touched 100,000 times the network. So if you think about what you were saying, so we do have people who are also able to challenge the kind of what we think is possible, and it got praised. I mean, we have the press release with STC also, that great work, and I think that's local innovation.
That's amazing. So there are two elements here. So there's the people, which you mentioned are there. They're getting really good education, they're getting experience, they're facing problems, and they're trying to solve the problems creatively, and that's fine and good. But then you mentioned something very, very dangerous, which is culture, the organizational culture, right? You put the best people in the world in the wrong culture, they're not empowered, then it's useless. So it's not about the people, because like you said, when these people come to Nokia, and Nokia have the culture, obviously, evidenced by its innovation, it's still kicking now, after all these years. But what about the other organizations here? You think it's still not as much as it should be to enable innovation? Is this what you're saying?
I'm not saying that. I think it's each company has their own culture. So look at the Emirates Airlines. I think that they are one of the best, if not the best airline in the industry today. And it's not necessarily anymore that they have the best planes or latest planes, right? So, but
it's the service,
but the service culture,
absolutely,
and that innovation that goes into that, right? And I think that is another good example that, and they have different culture than Nokia does, right? But you have the people who are there thinking about that. What does it take to be the best airline? They have a great competition with Qatar. Qatar Airways their service is very different. I don't know if you fly with both of them.
I only fly Emirates, unfortunately.
So when you look at the Qatar, it's much more, I would say, formal. And in Emirates, it's maybe me a little bit better, even though relaxed. I fly maybe more. It's more relaxed, but it's personal and it's still very kind of a cordial, right? So you know that you're on an Emirates plane and you know what to expect, even though the crews are coming from 20 different countries and all that stuff. So I think it's a great example of innovation in a fully local company. We spoke about Etisalat, we spoke about I've got in a training also DB World, what I see, what they are doing. Also kind of re-innovating the whole logistic chain. So I wouldn't say that there is not innovation here and not the culture for that.
No, but it's not about no innovation. It's just that that's why I said what's slowing down innovation, right? And when you mentioned empowerment, and I think it's a powerful idea that if we don't address what's slowing us down, we'll never know, right? And then we'll just be behind, like we are now in the Global Innovation Index. I mean, we're tracking relatively behind. I mean, the UAE is at the forefront of the region, but still it's at 32 internationally. Whereas Singapore is probably number 5 or number 4. Switzerland is number 1, obviously, the Netherlands and others. So it's not about the country size. It's not about the resources of the the country. It's something else. And I really resonate with what you said, which is the empowerment of the frontliners, the people who are at the forefront, not the bosses, not the people in the kind of large, lavish, offices. It's those people that
I have to tell you a story now. So I don't think Paul Lyngho will be hearing this, but Paul told me this. He's an ex-colleague of mine, the Danish guy now retired, and the story is about rubber boots.
Rubber boots. Okay.
I don't know if you know that Nokia used to make rubber boots.
No,
but,
I didn't.
This is one of the original products of Nokia, so of our innovation. But it's not about the Nokia rubber boots also. So Paul said this story in a meeting a long time ago, and he had been as a young engineer sent from Denmark to Africa. And somebody managed to sell wooden poles from Denmark to Africa for, putting the PST and the old networks, the wires were going in poles. So his task was to basically set up the project to erect the poles. So like today when we are building in Ethiopia, at that time in the 70s, there was not enough concrete, no cement.
Okay.
So Paul was a young engineer and he was thinking about what should I do. So he decided that, okay, I'll call my boss in Copenhagen. Somehow he managed to make a phone call, which most likely was difficult at that time, and get the boss online and said, hey boss, I need help. I have no cement here. Boss said, use your rubber boots and hang up the phone call. And Paul said that I was totally puzzled. So what the heck was that, right? So I had a concrete question and my boss gives me a useless advice. So, do you know what Paul did?
Mm-hmm.
What would you do?
I don't know.
Well, of course, you would find the solution, right? So he started to go around and asking, how do we do it without cement here? And managed to get it done.
How?
Well, I think it was some mud, whatever it was. It's not important. But he got the project done.
Okay.
And then, whatever way was the getting out of Africa in the 70s to Denmark, most likely some many flights, and gets back and is angry and goes to the boss's room.
Okay.
Mars is there and says like, what the heck was that? I had a really big problem and you gave me useless advice. And the boss was looking around in his big office, you were talking about that, and said that, I'm a big boss. I'm here in Copenhagen. I have big office, big salary, and I have never been in Africa. So how could I have helped you?
That's a very nice mindset. Yeah.
And I talk about this inside Nokia as well for the people to remind that, the people, it's like lean, right? So Kaizen in that sense, people closest to the problem have the best capability to sort it out when you have the right culture. So of course you have to understand that Paul would know that he's not going to bribe anybody. He's not going to be doing anything dangerous, right? All those things are there. And then he will find the solution. And I think that's the innovation that you have to have there, that people dare, they don't need to call me, they don't need to call the boss that, what should I do? And I think I see good things in this sense here also in the Gulf, that people have those skills.
There's the promise, and we're early on when it comes to a nation and the region, when it comes to understanding the value of empowerment and understanding the value of corporate culture when it comes to actually producing innovation, not just buying it. So let me quickly shift gears into entrepreneurship. What's your view about the entrepreneurship state in our region? I mean, have you interacted with entrepreneurship at a, like you mentioned Leap, and obviously now Gitix is happening. So what's your thoughts on that?
I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I never had the guts to be myself an entrepreneur. I saw positive things and negative things. So some success and some bankruptcies, right? Which is part of the enterprise life. So somehow I got, poisoned with the big corporates, and I've been
with the golden handcuffs, right?
Always worked on that side. But I see, of course, I see a lot of people who come here with the ideas of creating new entrepreneurs and enterprises, and I think that it's a pretty good environment for that in the Gulf in that sense. So because the governments also understand that you have to transform over the next couple of decades from being a oil business to be something else. So if you think about the tourism, what you have here, so a lot of, in my opinion, smaller things companies are being built. One of my ex-Nokia colleagues just moved here, and I think they start to build servers here. I will not talk about the company right now, but what I saw, it was also quite powerful, and I think it's linked with the local ministry. So you see that people, want to seize the opportunity to create something new. And for me, I always admire the entrepreneurs because you see it, I used to live in Silicon Valley as well, so I lived around the world. So, and you have a lot of friends there who fail or who success, and I think isn't it quite normal that before you see the really successful entrepreneurs, they've filed several bankruptcies because very few. I don't know anybody who would have got the first time right. I don't know if you have
I've
any
never
examples.
Had no.
I think you have to practice and learn on that side. And I think that we are going to see, like you mentioned, both Chitex and Leap. It's full of new ideas.
Potential,
And you see it like we spoke about Volt earlier today. So when it was coming from a guy called Mikko Lavanti, who was I think one of the original founders of Slush.
Oh, really?
So they were young, in their 20s when they founded that one. And I remember when I was reading that now he's going to some weird delivery business. And what they did was, of course, excellent thing, the story of selling it to basically to DoorDash. I think you see similar type of innovation happening here. And I think the entrepreneurs then are the engine in that sense. So it's not only the big companies who can do it. I think the smaller companies often have better ideas, and we also work on that side. So we have in Nokia what we call the Nokia monetization platform. My good friend is running that, and the idea is where we're opening the APIs for developers. And you basically, I think about it, maybe I'm wrong, but I think about it as the kind of Apple Store of networks.
Right.
So you basically have these startups thinking about, what can I do based on the network, and then the operators can actually put that and they can use it as a service. So I'm thinking about a lot on what you can do, for example, with location-based services. So I don't know if anybody's working
crowd control
but even I'm just thinking about that. One of the biggest things when I order anything from Amazon is that it always gets delivered where I'm not in.
Yes.
So why not to deliver where I'm in here right now? If I've ordered something, it could be delivered here.
Yes, it knows where you are, and
my phone knows where I'm.
Yes.
And you can just like follow me, and they when the product is ready, follow you. So the crowd control is another one, but I think that there's a lot of value on the networks, on the location.
Is there a success story on the entrepreneurs with Nokia's help?
There are already, I think there are already some. I cannot talk everything. I've seen something being built in some countries, so it's so new.
How is the kind of entrepreneurs taking advantage of that feature, let's say, or that facilitation?
So it's basically the platform. So what I expect is to see more and more is that you will get the smaller company. I think about it in that way that you would suddenly have, I think we have like 400 networks in the world, maybe a little bit more, 500 networks. And a developer in UAE can get access to most of them, right?
Yeah.
So you put it, you develop a piece of software that helps whatever. There was a Turkish company that was focusing on the unbankable people.
Right.
So the app was kind of thinking that how can
Africa, right?
Yeah, small payments.
They call it micropayments.
With prepaid, right?
Yes.
So people who don't have banking, and I think in Africa, I don't know how big part of the population is unbankable.
True.
So think about those markets that you can start to do this smaller payments, and you create the system, and as an operator, you don't need to develop it because you can buy it as an app onto your portfolio.
And as an entrepreneur, obviously, you're enabled by this, Nokia system to allow you to kind of develop these systems or these services. Okay, how about 6G? What is 6G?
6G is, of course, right now, last year here in Dubai, we were talking about the frequencies, and I think it's going to be next 2 to 3 years that the frequencies, it will be somewhere in the 7 gigahertz.
Okay.
And we believe that...
So it's not yet...
No, it's not. We expect somewhere in 2030. I still may work or may be retired, who knows? But you kind of...
it's that far, huh?
Yeah, so 2030. So, but what it is, we just last week showed in Bangalore for our colleagues. So we say we're building the networks that kind of think, act, and what was the third one? Exactly. So what we can do with that one, so we demonstrated, for example, on the crowd control, the network will sense, think, and act, right? So it will know the crowd, so you don't need any more like IoT devices. And that means, of course, if you think about again on the energy, so consumption, so very, very different things. So the early parts of course, the standardization is ongoing right now. But what we think about it is that you will be able to do a lot of the IoT services today require different network elements, energy, so you can do it actually with the network.
What's the bottleneck in 5G that 6G will solve?
Well, I think latency is one of them. So
okay.
when we were looking at the 5G, so most of the 5G...
But latency is physics, right?
Yeah,
you can't. I mean, like, even if it's fiber, even if it's whatever, if it's in the States, it's in the States. There's a.
Well, you have the super fast optical connections we use today for the stock exchange.
But still,
so just to try to explain, so the 5G promise was already that you would be able to go below the kind of a 50 millisecond, I think, to some 10 milliseconds of latency. So human brain reacts on 50 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
You know the fact when you are channel swapping on your TV and the TV is not reacting and you press second time, then the delay was more than 50 milliseconds. So your brain was thinking that it's not reacting. And if you think about the autonomous driving and all the things that we have been talking, 5G networks have been often non-standalone. So it's been working based on the 4G on the 5G. So you don't get the benefits of the
5G
latency.
working on 4G.
Yeah.
Okay.
So last week the R&D team was explaining to the our audience that you are looking at going then below 1 millisecond
with 6G
latency. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And that means, of course, that the network the cells will become to be much smaller,
much denser.
Yeah, much more dense, and obviously then you have to think about what you might do, what we call AI run. Where you are maybe using somebody like NVIDIA GPUs there, so that you have in the edge more content, more kind of. So you start to little bit what we were thinking 5G would be. I think they see more on the 6G, and then once you build all of this, I think in the radio forming as well that they can go on the kind of the beam forming on 5G.
Yeah.
So I think that you go so that we can much better even know if somebody is lying on the ground. So you kind of, I cannot explain now that the theory behind that, but that's the sensing part. That's why they can do the crowd control without maybe IoT devices in that sense, that you will much more kind of know exact location, not only like that I'm here,
because
but
of the density of the.
Yeah.
But then you have more wires, right?
Why?
Because every BTS, every base station requires its own fiber, no? I mean, how
yes,
are you...
but you can do microwave, of course.
Right.
So microwave technology is also developing, but yes, in principle, of course, yes.
And will it it will not affect the latency because microwave has...
But I think if you look at the current products, they are also pretty IP, so I don't think you will need to do that. Some people say that 6G might be analog. What if the quantum computing comes fast enough? So then you don't need to waste energy on digital analog.
Yeah, the DAC and the yeah.
So if you can actually somehow think about that. So I've seen some presentations, some by the Chinese, some by our kind of a futurist thinking. So that might be something, but I don't know enough about quantum computing right now.
So between 6G, AI, just to close the loop on what we started, between 6G, AI, and quantum computing, what's your vision if all three of those got matured in 2030? How is our life?
I don't think it's 2030, but maybe 2035 if you think about like 10 years.
Okay.
In advance, I think it's maybe better to think about that.
If these three are mature and active and kicking in our world. I mean, the one thing, so internet, so industrial revolution made complete change in our way of life. And then the information and internet was crazy. Now AI, but everybody thought that AI is internet 1995, right? When internet boomed and everything else. But really, it's not. It's, people are using it to, write WhatsApps and emails and everything, but it's not yet. the paradigm shift that makes things change, like the internet or social media. But to your point, I think if 6G, quantum computing and AI became mature, then that's the third one after the industrial and the internet. What would change?
Have you seen, there's actually, maybe I can send it to you, but there's a Bell Labs study, right? So we have Bell Labs Consulting also, that they created a study of kind of the productivity jumps on GDP.
Yeah.
And in the 1950s, also last week we had a economist in our training, Linda Yo, I think was her name, so showing that in the 1950s there was a huge peak after the war on productivity. And I don't remember exactly the Bellas, but what they were saying kind of that it required 4 different technologies to be major, or like a main street in the same time. There was the automotive, right, coming from the early 19s. I think there were some, early computers. There's, I don't remember exactly, but there were like 4 things that happened in the same time to be on Main Street, and that got a big productivity gain. Yeah.
Okay.
And what Bell Labs is saying about the same internet has not brought productivity.
Yes.
If you look at the GDP. So, and I think maybe that's the combination. If you have the quantum computing, AI, and kind of 6G. A 6G in the same time, maybe there's something else still. If they hit in the same time Main Street, you would expect to get another jump in the productivity, and obviously we are at that time most likely much more in a service society. So what does it mean for I think we briefly talked about the cars that are not anymore, you are not allowed to drive them. I just heard about one, I need to think about how I say it, but I heard that somebody had bought somewhere in the world big piece of land.
Okay.
With the thinking that people want to come there and drive cars at some point.
That's crazy.
Nostalgia, right?
That's crazy.
We all look for the old times as well. Yeah. So, but I think that's
not utopia. That's dystopia.
But you think about there's a business opportunity, so
you can
of course, do things like that. So you buy your old cars there, and then you get people to come and drive.
It becomes like horse riding.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. That's what we were talking. It's exactly so. This is the point.
That's
but I think,
crazy. Wow. Okay.
So I'm not a futurist, but I think that those type of things might be there, so that
regardless
if they'll happen right together, what it means for us, most likely what we are kind of looking at is that we need to continuously grow on the enterprise solutions, and I think that's always a little bit more difficult for people to think about that. When I started my career, and I don't know when, maybe we can start to close at that point, but I started my career on the operator side, and we basically were selling PBXs and 2 megabit connections.
Oh yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And when you do that, you're competing with anybody, right? So the customers will buy. Okay, tell me what's the capacity, what's the price, blah blah blah, and then we started to think about, okay, how do we reframe this? And I remember we formed something which is called Milk Call.
Okay.
In Finland, people drink milk in the schools and hotels, breakfast or what have you there. And we looked at, it was going to the local dairy company, and the PBX, we asked, where are you buying this for? And they said, for our outbound call center. And then I asked, so what's the problem? They said, our sales is inefficient because they need to call daily the customers. The customers are available only for 1 hour at the day. Everybody who sells fresh products calls in the same time. So it's basically manual process how I can keep that I call. I think each salespeople not needed to call maybe 20 or 30, whatever it was. What we did, we actually automated the process.
Okay.
And at that time, it was not anymore selling a PBX, and we made a big margin, reframed it, and that was the innovation there that you can do. So I think at that time it was what we called IN, and now if you think about 10 years from here, whatever you can do, but you have to be able to customize for the enterprise segment. Your solutions, you need to differentiate, and I think that's going to be for Nokia and our customers the big thing that over the next, we spoke about this Nokia monetization platform, so it's going to be the big time that how do we prepare ourselves for that time, and as Nokia is now 150, close to 160 years, I think, old.
Oh, wow.
And we have renewed. So I said that we started from paper and rubber boots what have you there, and how many times we renewed. I think we have to renew again and again. That's the beauty of life.
Exactly. So how long do you think you'll stay in the region, in GCC?
I stopped guessing on those. So my wife lives in Finland, and
really?
Yeah, and I have a 5G product. I have 5 daughters, so it's my 5 girls. I told her that I have a 4-year contract now, and I'm on a satellite contract, so you never know where I go next. I've been living in China, in US, in Germany, in Turkey, everywhere. So who knows? I was talking with the HR, said that I learned that in Saudi I can retire when I'm 60, and they said you're not going to be retiring, and I know it. So let's see where we meet next. Who knows?
It's really a pleasure, Mikko. Thank you very much for the talk. I enjoyed every bit of it, and I hope the audience was.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.